this comes through, and people can let us know if they're seeing it and so on. Okay, so Carol, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I always enjoy the learning process in setting up new complicated technology, you know?
Yeah, I know.
I never try to see when technical problems happen on my computer as a bad thing. I'm like, no, this is a learning opportunity.
Well, it is. There are just so many of those.
There are so many learning opportunities.
Hey, Benny, when you go live,
Isabel.
will you share the link in the Facebook group, please?
Oh, you want me to share? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm sharing now. So if anyone's watching this, say hi.
Hi.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Oh, there you are, Isa. How you doing?
Fine.
Okay, I'm just sharing this in the Facebook page, so anyone can join us now.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting, let me see. I just wanted to double check. I am not seeing the link in the group.
Okay. All right. Do you see it now?
We're live, right?
Yeah, we're live, so
let me
everyone
refresh.
should see us, and we should be
Okay.
good to go. And I just shared it on Facebook.
I'll just go ahead and start then. So welcome everyone. This is the finale for the Add1Challenge 29, A1C29. And as a part of the finale, we are going to answer a few of the questions that you've submitted to us prior to the finale, as well as the questions of the two finalists that we have here with us today. And we're also going to select the winner of A1C29. So before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to give our panelists and finalists an opportunity to introduce themselves. Today, our polyglot panel includes Ian van der Aa. So Ian, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello Shannon. So my name is Jan van A. I'm Dutch, so I'm from the Netherlands, and I actually got inspired by Benny's blog. It's been, I don't know when it was, maybe 7 years ago. For how long have you been doing this, Benny? Anyways, I got inspired by that and I thought, whoa, this guy is learning many languages. I want to do something similar. So over the last 8 years, I traveled to 104 countries, and I learned more or less 7 or 8 languages as well. And these days we run a website and also a YouTube channel called A Language Boost. And I'm happy to be here today. So thanks for the invitation, Benny and Shannon.
We're happy to have you. Benny, did you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I've been traveling a good, I think, 14, 15 years in total, and that has led to lots of language learning, and of course the start of Fluent in 3 months, and I was very happy to take charge over from Brian of the Add1Challenge, and to kind of join forces with Shannon and the rest of Team Fluent in 3 months to help everyone else learn languages.
Great. So today our 3 finalists are Kirsten Olsen-Russell, who unfortunately couldn't make it here to be with us today. She was learning German as a part of the challenge, and one of the things that was really notable about the way that she did the challenge this time around is that she did it with her father, which was a really fun experience for her and for the other challengers to get to see. Our other 2 finalists who are here with us, and I'll give you both a moment to introduce yourselves, are Carol Todd and Isabel Kramel. And so I want you each to kind of introduce yourself, tell us what language you were studying as a part of the challenge, and the biggest thing that you got out of doing the challenge this time around. So Carol, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm Carol Todd. I'm not even sure anymore. That was either my 3rd or 4th challenge, but I have really gotten a lot out of all this. I'm not one of the younger participants, being 70 now, but I can't even say how great this has been for me for all the challenge. Good, because actually it was kind of nice that it was small, but I had great people in both my mastermind and study groups, which was just wonderful for all the support. The support is great because the other people in your groups are counting on you, and that's what kind of keeps us accountable. And also, I just want to say while I'm on here that, I owe all of my language learning efforts originally to Benny and his Fluent in 3 months site, because I stumbled on that just about 3 years ago. And it was such a new concept to me, the idea of speaking from the beginning, because, that's not how we're taught in school at all. And so I thought, well, yes, why not give it a go and see what happens? So I'm just really happy to be here and to have gotten at least this far. I have a long way to go with German, but that's okay. I find it a little more difficult.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. Very glad that whenever I hear that the team has inspired people to learn languages, and seeing the results, of course, because inspiring people is one thing. People can be like, oh, wow, I feel great that I could possibly do this. But what I find inspiring myself is seeing the videos that you guys are uploading and the amount of work that goes into them. And that shows me that it's really been worth it, all the work that we all do.
Oh, well, I say thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Isabelle, did you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, my name is Isabelle Cramaille. Even the French people can pronounce it well. So I'm French, and it's been my 4th challenge. I started 2 years ago with Spanish, and then last year Italian and French Sign Language, and this year Portuguese. And it's been great being in this challenge again. And I was very happy to be with Carol in the mastermind group. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I still owe you a conversation in French.
Oh, yes. One of these days.
One of these days, yes. And, yes, I wanted to learn Portuguese because there are many people in my region who speak Portuguese, and it's been the first challenge now I can speak Portuguese with many people. There's one colleague at work, they are my pupils. There are plenty of people with who I can speak Portuguese, and it was not the same with Italian or Spanish or French Sign Language. So it's even greater now because I can practice, not every day, but I can use it often.
That's really great. All right, so thank you both. And thank you to the panelists too, of course. So let's go ahead and start. Let's chat about consistency in study and what you guys can do after the challenge. So the two of you, Carol and Isabelle, since you're here with us live, you have the floor, and you're welcome to ask Benny, Jan, or I any questions that you have. So just feel free to start chiming in with your questions.
Well, I have sort of a question anyway, because I know you all speak many languages, whereas I've only, obviously I speak English, but American English, but I also, I've done challenges for Spanish and French, and I feel like I've made a fair amount of progress there. My German is still pretty rough. I freeze up, of course, when I have to speak with my teachers. I'm sorry I couldn't have recorded for my final video. The one the week before was a lot better, but oh well. But here's the thing. What do you do? I think this is asked all the time, but if you speak several languages and you want to keep them all as current as possible, I don't want to lose my French, and I don't want to lose my Spanish. And, I've been I haven't been actively studying those during the challenge because it was so much work just to work on German. But I have to admit, I've been talking with people every week in French and a little in Spanish, not as much. And I'm just wondering, do you think that's detrimental to maintain that level of conversation along with the study of a different language?
Do you want to take this, Jan?
Yeah. Okay. So I can give you an example. Yesterday, my dear friend Lucas, who's also a polyglot, called me. And I was in the car, and he wanted was driving, and he said he wanted to practice this language. I said, "Come on, let's do it." So we had a conversation in like 6 or 7 languages, and the first language went pretty well because these were the stronger, and then he passed on to Spanish, and I froze. I had to say "you have," and I was like "tú has." I was completely lost. So this is a good example. I think it happens to everyone. So do we need to maintain our languages? Yes, but I always say, or we always say, a language boost, that once you reach a good level, I would say like a good B2, and this language becomes part of yourself, and you have created like this personality in this language. You can just easily switch, okay, French, paf, and then you speak French, and you do not really mix it up with these other languages anymore. If this language is not very strong yet, so if you're still in your A levels or maybe beginner B, then you have to organize. You have to either organize a routine, or you really have to keep using these languages. Otherwise, yeah, you mix them up. So there's not really. I don't think there's a magical solution for this. It's just a matter of practice. I think you just need to practice more, and then eventually, once the language gets stronger, you can pass on through. You can learn other languages as well. It also, of course, depends on language families. So if you're very good at French and you're gonna learn Spanish, yeah, pretty sure you're gonna use a lot of French words in your Spanish. It happens all the time to me as well. If it's German, I'm not sure how much German is gonna interfere in your Spanish. I think the chance that happens is maybe a little bit less. But sometimes I even use Portuguese words in my Russian for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I guess it happens to any of us, and it's a matter of practice.
Just a quick story before, Benny, I give you the chance to answer this as well, to share related. Last week I was at a conference, I was using a lot of Chinese and French, and I found that whenever I was speaking with my French friends, instead of saying "ouais," I said "dui," which means right in Chinese, and they'd say something to me like "dui, dui," and then I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, even if they're not related, that creeping in, it still happens. So Benny, go ahead.
Yeah, and even like when your best languages haven't been used for a while, you'd be surprised. Like in New York, I don't expect people to spontaneously speak to me in Spanish until they know that I speak Spanish. And just yesterday, a guy was walking past me and he said, "Perdón, ¿dónde está el banco che?" And I was like, "Whoa, Spanish." And I was thinking, "Che? Che?" Like, I was imagining a bank with like a symbol of a guy wearing a beret and all this. And it turned out because I wasn't in maintenance mode, I forgot that they would, in many situations, just not pronounce things the way you would expect it. So he actually meant Chase Bank, which is a big bank in America, but he said Banco de Che, and he just didn't say the S. And so that's because I, over the last month, have been not as actively practicing my Spanish, whereas I was practicing it just a month ago. So it's kind of a case of like spinning a lot of dishes and keeping that up at the same time. The more languages you get to, the more difficult it becomes to maintain all of them. So what I always tell people is I totally agree with Jan, you're not going to be able to keep a very maintained level of the language in your head unless it's at a B2 level. So anything under B2, I just need to consider that I need to get back into an intensive project where I'm just learning that language until I get it up to at least B2. And all the other ones, then I'm either in that intensive learning or I'm in maintenance mode. And when I'm in maintenance mode, I'm consistently practicing as often as I can, in as many varied situations as I can, because when you get to your higher languages, it's more than just a quick conversation. You need to be reading books, and if you have Skype lessons with a teacher, they need to be challenging you with maybe debates and so on if you get to the C levels. So it really has to keep varied, but it depends on the person. So in my case, even my best languages, if I'm out of them for a few months, then I could still speak them, but I start to forget like simple things like how pronunciations might change from one to the other, you know? So just it's about putting the right time into it, and especially if you've got a nice handleable number of languages, you can absolutely make that possible.
Okay, thank you.
Isabel, we'll turn it over to you. Do you have a question that you would like to ask Jan or Benny?
No, it was no. I was wondering about maintaining all those languages, but you just answered. But I've decided to till I start a new challenge again at the end of the year. I wanted to maintain so Italian, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese, and I started to write a copybook, and each page is separated into 4. So I've got one part for Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and another language which is part of the Latin group that I'm going to learn in November. So I have, for example, all the numbers, all the colors, so I can see clearly which is which, so I can stop or avoid mixing everything, because sometimes you think about a word and I don't know if it's Spanish or Italian or Portuguese, and I think that with this copybook that will be clearer for me when I try to maintain my level.
So what about you guys, Jan and Benny? What do you do to avoid mixing languages? Are there any specific techniques that you use to do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there are specific techniques that I have or that I use for my own language learning, but another example I can give is, for example, if I speak, let's say, I don't know, about a few years ago, I wanted to learn Cantonese after learning Mandarin. But every time when I encounter a new word in Cantonese, before I learn the word in Cantonese, I learn the word in Mandarin if I didn't know it yet. And that way, every time when I learn a new word, I keep those languages separated. I learn, okay, this is how you say it in Cantonese, and this is how you say it in Mandarin. If for my experience, this is also something that helps. So this is something that you can try. If it doesn't work for you, then don't do it. But you can at least try. I think language learning is something very personalized. Like, it works just a little. I know that this speaking from day one approach motivates a lot of people, and it works for a lot of people. It works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for everyone. It's something very personal. So maybe that's something that you can try if you want to learn a new language. So before you learn a new word, think about how you say that word in the language, if that's saying.
Yeah.
Just a tip.
And in terms of not mixing up languages, another thing that I had early in my language, missions, as it were, was I had a specific mission where its sole purpose was for me to learn the ability to work with multiple languages. So I wasn't actually learning a new language in that project. What I was doing is I was actively taking the level I was currently at, not necessarily trying to improve on them. At the time, I could speak Portuguese, French, Spanish, and Italian. And they're very close languages, and I was mixing them up a lot. So my whole project was to spend time, like one day in one language, one day in another language, which is helpful in itself. But then, when I felt ready for it, I went to international meetups, like at the time couchsurfing events, and I would intentionally try to move from one language to another. And I feel like I started to get forced to develop this skill of switching, because I could speak Spanish for a few hours and then take a break and have dinner and then maybe meet an Italian and speak Italian for a few hours. But what I wanted to learn was the skill of switching within a few seconds from one language to another. And to this day, I find that very, very difficult. And that's why, like I was just saying, if somebody forces it on me, like if I'm at a polyglot event and someone hits me with Irish, for instance, then my head is spinning. So I still haven't learned that skill yet, that somebody else decides which language they want to speak with me. But if I'm in a social event and I can take 20 seconds to move from one part of it to another and switch from one language to another, that is something that I have been able to do. So I'm thinking, okay, the next step, can I finally be at the stage where someone could just hit me and I could be like, yes, I'm ready for Spanish mode. So you learn, you practice what you want to get better at, and if the problem is mixing up languages, then maybe you need to like switch languages more often and be with the kind of people who would correct you. I would keep mixing up Portuguese and Spanish, and the people I was with would correct me. They would say, no, you can't say mais grande in Portuguese, you have to say maior. And I wouldn't know that, or I would be still thinking with a Spanish mindset. So these are the kind of things that can help you, is just practicing the fact that you're likely to mix them up, and then seeing what you can do and the skills you develop in that.
Okay, real quick, we have a question over on YouTube from Moji. They asked when the next Add1Challenge is beginning. My answer for you on that would be to go to add1challenge.com and sign up. There's a link up in the top right corner to get notifications for when the next challenge opens. And while you're waiting, there's actually a free mini course that you get when you sign up. So that would be my recommendation if you're curious to know when the next Add1Challenge is, to sign up on the website. That way you'll get an email when it opens so that you don't miss that opportunity. Carol, I'm going to turn it back over to you, so if you have another question for Benny and Jan.
Well, not exactly a question, but I would like to say that I found what Benny said, and Jan too, very interesting about the language switching, because this is something where when I wasn't, concentrating on one, like on German by itself, where I sort of let everything else slide a bit, so that except for maybe an occasional conversation, because I have friends who want to talk with me, so I have to talk with them anyway. But I do find that what I was noticing is the same thing that Benny described about switching. The switching thing is really going to be important to me, because, some days I would have one conversation in Spanish and then right behind it one in French, and oh my, it was so interesting. It's a good thing that they were very kind, because they would just tell me, no, that's Spanish, or vice versa, but I need like at least an hour or two between to switch gears. So I understand that, but I don't know, do you think maybe, as you said, the remedy is just to do it more rather than less? Because I was like avoiding the time periods to try to leave a gap so that I could switch. Yeah. And it's that way with German too, except that I don't mix the others into German. I mix German into the other two. So that's because it's such a low. Yeah,
I think it's definitely a matter of practice. But also, like recently, we organized this online event for parents who want to raise their children multilingually. One of the techniques was, I think they call it the one parent, one language technique, which basically means that the parent or one parent only speaks in one. Well, I can give an example. We have a 3-month-old son, and I'm only going to speak Dutch to him, and my wife or my partner is only going to speak French to them. And that's like a proven method, like associating a person with a language can avoid children, not only children, but also human and in general, avoid mixing up these languages. So what you could, for example, do is, like, for example, Isabella said that she has colleagues who she can practice her Portuguese with. If you only speak Portuguese, or if you only speak a certain language with a certain person, then after a while, when you see that person, automatically, puff, you make that switch to that person. So maybe that can also help to be very consistent which language you speak with a certain person. If I have to speak Chinese to someone, and immediately I think about when I was in China, when I had about the conversations I had with my Chinese friends, and then it's very hard to, because that's so, I don't know, it's like a different area in my brain. It's so separate from all the other languages. Because I was in another place, I spoke with other people. So to wrap it up, to summarize the long answer, associating certain particular language with a particular language, I think, can help. Maybe also locations, so that you say at home I only speak one language, but at work or at I don't know, the language meeting, or you can also associate places to languages. I think these are ways
even
to
situations.
keep
Like I found that I would, because I worked as a professional engineer in French, in professional situations, I got more and more and more comfortable speaking French, but I wasn't actually using it in social situations because I was working so much while I was living there. Whereas in Spain, I wasn't really working a lot, but I was going out a lot, and that meant that my skills developed there. And even to this day, I'm just more comfortable if it's like I meet a professional and we speak in French together. I'm more comfortable in that situation in French and switching into that very quickly. And in Spanish, I'm more comfortable in relaxed social situations. So it's because of like I was just saying, like what you practice the most. And so that means that makes it that little bit easier to avoid mixing them up. That you can make that switch, and like Jan was saying, if you have a particular person that you're used to speaking the language with, you'll be able to switch in with them. And there's a lot of ways you can find, but it all comes down to practicing, and just because you will find initially that it's kind of like you have to grind the gears in your head that you're suddenly switching from this language to another, and definitely you're going to. I can tell you, probably my greatest skill in all of this language learning things is accepting how stupid I am. I think that's my best talent of all. That I realize I am a moron and I embrace it. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so dumb. I can't even say this basic word in Spanish, and just being okay with that, and then kind of getting through that. So the whole making mistakes and being okay with making mistakes, that's what will help you become better at learning skills and things,
Great.
All right, Isabel, we'll turn it back over to you. Do you have anything else you'd like input on?
No, it was about language mixing, and I got all the answers I wanted, so it's great. Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of questions over on YouTube. One of them is from Corey, who is also an A1C29 challenger. Oh, yeah. She says, at a lower intermediate level where I just need to add a ton of vocabulary. How do you all approach that? It seems overwhelming sometimes.
Okay, I can give one quick suggestion then. For when it comes to adding loads of vocabulary, in a lot of languages, I think it depends on the language that you might be learning, but a lot of languages have building blocks. And this is especially helpful in languages that use them a lot, like Slavic languages and German, where you have prefixes and suffixes and then word roots. And it sounds very technical, but by just learning a handful of these things, you can expand your vocabulary dramatically. So English is a weird language in that it borrows from a lot of languages. It kind of takes a lot of languages into it. Other languages do it too, but the level that English does it means that it's a mixture of all these French and German, Germanic words, and you can't really predict a lot of the times what a word might be. But in other languages, you can even guess sometimes what the word is going to be by just putting the prefix and the word root and the suffix in a way that it describes the word. So as a huge boost to your vocabulary, I would try to find online, or maybe a really good grammar book, a list of prefixes and the kind of situations they're used in, word roots and suffixes. And by learning that, you might be learning 20, 30 of these like 3-letter words or wordlets, whatever you want to call them. But then from there, you might have thousands of words. So there's other ways to learn quickly, like mnemonics and so on. But I think learning the building blocks of the words of that language can make a world of difference. And it's why whenever people say to me, oh, Slavic language, they're all so hard. When I was learning Czech, I found it extraordinarily easy to guess what the meaning of words were once I had learned a very small handful of those building blocks. That I could see what exit meant and entrance meant, because these were just using in, go, out, go, and just kind of putting those together like that. So that's what I would suggest above all else, is learning those building blocks.
Yeah, so the question is how to learn vocabulary at a low intermediate, right? At B1.
She's learning Cantonese too, if that helps you, Jan, because I know that's a language you have experience with.
Okay.
Sorry, give me
Cantonese, yeah.
Or how I did that with Cantonese. Yeah, I think at this level, okay, so you can do two things basically for Cantonese. I think it's a little bit more tricky, but one thing that works that you can do for all languages is just take lessons online, of course. At this level, you're already able to hold simple, well, at least simple conversations. You can talk about topics you haven't talked about so much yet. Try to make more complex sentences, and then of course write down the new words that you think are important for you, because during a lesson you're going to ask so many questions, and your teacher, if you have a good teacher who writes the new words down, you're going to get so much information, you can get so much new words within 60 minutes that afterwards you need to filter, because you cannot learn 100 new words from every lesson that you are taking, supposing that you are taking 2 or 3 lessons a week if you're learning a language intensively. So after the lesson, I think it's very important that you filter, that you only pick the words that you think are very important. You can either write them down or put them in your flashcards deck if you like to do flashcards. I think that's a very good way to learn vocabulary that's relevant for you at that level. And then another thing that you can do, for example, by reading, but reading at a B1 level, I think is still a little bit tricky. So you need to look for materials that are written for people who are learning the language. So I think reading like SML books or Teach Yourself of Colloquial, these dialogues, I think can be suitable for this level. But I always prefer you just take lessons and learn, because if you want to learn a word from a book, it's a little bit boring, it's a little bit dry and static. But if you were actually in that call with your teacher and you were searching for that word, you were struggling, and then all of a sudden if this teacher tells you this word in the language that you are learning, you're gonna get the feeling like, that was it, yeah. And this embarrassment almost is actually gonna help you. Like this, like in these kind of circumstances, you are more likely to remember the word later. And it's also a relevant word because it's a word that you needed for yourself at a certain point. Yeah. And then, of course, after you learn the word, use it, like rephrase the sentence and use it immediately. And then maybe not just repeat the sentence, but after 5 minutes or just before the end of the lesson, sentences with all the new words that your teacher has written down, or at least the words that you think are the most important. So activate your brain, and then maybe do that as the next lesson. Or I don't have a very strict system for this, but I just try to use what I learned in general.
Yes, Isabel?
Yes, I wanted to say about vocabulary that I've tried gold listing this time.
Yeah.
Because I saw it on Facebook with Nikki, who talked about it. So I just gave it a try, and I'm doing my second distillation now, and it really works. And it's really good, and I'm very happy about it. Yeah. And so if people want to try it, just to experiment it, maybe it's worth giving it a go. What do you think, Carol? Have you tried it?
Not exactly as it's done. Usually what I do is try to keep a running list of words that I encounter, or that, I'm always holding conversations in my head. And so when I hit a snag because I don't know a word, I try to keep track of those words and write them down, and then go back, like you said, and sort of distill them down. The one thing I don't understand about goal listing is where you start your list from. I mean, is it just start from anywhere, like what I'm doing, or are you supposed to be starting it from a specific spot where you have words or phrases that you just don't know? I mean, where are you encountering these in lessons or in trying to talk, or I'm not sure where the beginning is.
I wrote down the sentences I got from my teacher in iTalki. She always writes me sentences, and so I
that's a good advice.
Sentences, and they are very useful because I use them all the time. So I use them in my lessons, and I use them in the list. So I think that at the end, I will remember them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't tried it formally, just sort of very rough. But for me, it really helps to write things down. So, yes.
I think when it comes to learning vocabulary, it all comes to being able to connecting words to something that you already know. So
Yeah.
you can either do this with mnemonics, or also linking it to words in another language. If you're learning Portuguese and you speak French already, maybe you can find similarities. So making links with things you already know, but also making links with emotions. So this can be, for example, that example that I just gave, that when you're in a lesson, you don't know the word, you're thinking, you have to struggle, you get this correction, you feel a little bit embarrassed maybe, and this is also an emotional connection that you can link with a new word. Yeah, I think also having like personal relationships with native speakers helps a lot, because you can memorize. Sometimes you can memorize like the way a native speaker said something. Reproduce that phrase later yourself.
All right, so we're coming close to the end of the finale. Jan or Benny, do you have any final encouraging words you'd like to give the finalists before we announce who the winner is?
Yeah, so we were checking out all the videos that you guys had uploaded, and I really want people to embrace the idea that anytime you felt a moment where you're struggling and you feel bad about yourself, those are your learning moments. And I saw a lot of those learning moments, and then I saw the results of those learning moments in the next video when you were up the next notch. And this is always something that shows how hard you're working at it, because you're going to get the results. And so that's my impression for sure, is seeing the true struggle, but then seeing the results of the struggle. And you should be really proud of yourselves.
Mm-hmm. I think it's always very motivating to see how people, like these participants of that one challenge, like at which levels they speak at the beginning, and like the progress that they make, and that they are actually able to hold a conversation after 90 days. And even not super fluent, or if there are a lot of mistakes, at least you are able to hold a conversation. That's something that you either couldn't do 90 days before, or you didn't dare to do. I think that's also a very important factor. But anyways, a lot of you guys actually managed to somehow do it, and I think that's the most important. That's the most important thing, and I think it's beautiful to observe that from the side.
Mm-hmm.
Sideline, I think you say in English.
For me, I just wanted to say that as a part of this challenge, it was great to get to know the three of you and the other challengers as a part of A1C29. And I know that with Carol, at least, we're a part of some other language learning groups, so I'm sure I will continue to get to see you see your language learning projects. And Isabel, I hope to see you in some other groups as well. So this time around, because we didn't have 50 challengers, the prize is $100 in italki credits. So the winner of A1C29 is Isabel.
Ta-da!
So congrats, Isabel, on winning the 29th Add1 Challenge. How do you feel about winning?
Oh, I'm very happy because I was running low on italki credits. So it's great. I'm very happy. Last time I got some credits, it was for my birthday in December. My friends gave me some credits, and so it's great. I'm very happy.
Excellent. Yeah, all of the finalists did an excellent job. But what we found impressive about Isabel is she had this extra challenge that we really do like to put people in groups where they have the same language that can help them boost one another. And Isabel did not have that advantage with someone else learning with her in Portuguese. And yet, despite this, she did great.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Kristen, who's not here, unfortunately, I think also did a very good job.
Oh, yeah.
It was difficult to tell how well she was speaking. She was learning German. It was difficult to tell how well she was speaking German at day one. But anyways, her result was very impressive. She was very relaxed, and she really managed to hold a pretty, well, almost sophisticated conversation, I would say. Isabel was a French speaker learning Portuguese. Of course, it's easier, but even though the two languages are quite similar, I think she made very good progress in 90 days. And as Benny said,
absolutely, she's great.
Well, you are great too.
And Carol,
not just
because we heard a lot of.
Because I remember in the mastermind group said, "Oh, I don't know if I'm going to have this lesson," and you did it.
Well, it took me until the last month to
but you did
courage to have a lesson. It was so hard.
So
we heard a lot of good things from you, Carol.
Well, I do think one thing I discovered just recently, maybe in the last 3 weeks, what Benny said about the compound words, all the little prefixes and suffixes in German. My daughter speaks some German, and she's been telling me that all along. She won't speak with me, but she's been telling me that. And of course, I didn't listen, because when I first tried German back in college 50 years ago, it was a disaster. I got out with just a barely passing grade, and it was so demoralizing after doing really well in Latin and French, and then I did take German, and I couldn't, the words were like 8 miles long. Literally, I've never seen such long words. But yeah, I just recently discovered that. I was wondering why on all the lists, of most commonly used words and things to learn in German, all the prepositions came up first, and all the little pieces. And now I see why, because all of these words fit together like a puzzle. So this is cool. So I'm really enjoying dissecting it and figuring it out along the way, which is what I do.
We heard a lot of good things from you, Carol, from the community. They say that you're a very hard worker and also very inspiring to the older participants. I also have to mention my father is 65, and I try to encourage him to learn Spanish because he wants to learn Spanish, but he says that he's too old.
Oh, he's not too old.
I think you said he was 70, and you're still so.
70.
And you're still learning all these languages. I think I hope that once I reach that age, that I'm going to be as active.
Oh well, I hope so. I'm counting on at least a lot of years yet, so I can learn a lot more. Maybe I'll actually be able to, hold conversations in all of them.
Yeah, you're showing us how it's done, Carol. Good job.
It's just a lot. Yeah, thanks.
All right, so I just wanted to thank everyone again. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Kirsten, even though you couldn't make it today. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Jan. I appreciate you taking the time to this Saturday morning, afternoon, evening, wherever it is for you guys. Of course, Benny and Jan, do you want to share with people where people can connect with you online, Jan?
Yes, so people can find me, well, first of all, on YouTube. So if you search for Language Boost, you can find our channel there. And we come with 3 videos per week where we share our own language learning journeys, but also encourage other people to learn languages and give tips and tricks. And we also have a website that's languageboost.biz, B-I-Z.
Benny?
And otherwise, anyone can check out fluent3months.com or find what I'm up to on a day-to-day basis on my Instagram, Twitter, at Irish Polyglot. And definitely check out Add1Challenge.com. We will be we'll be discussing when the next one's going to launch, and we're going to very excitedly get everyone ready for that one. And I hope anyone watching this is encouraged, and I hope that anyone gives their own language learning challenge a try, and just do it with friends, do it with the community. You'd be surprised what difference it makes. It really does.
Yes, so thank you everyone for watching, and if you are interested in joining the next Add1 Challenge or finding out when it happens, again, just sign up on the Add1Challenge.com website, and you will get messages from Benny and I when the next challenge opens. So thank you again so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Benny.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.